Welcome aboard! We will be your guides during this magical journey into the movies. It's the perfect job for us because we love the movies. It's showtime! Ready when you are, CB!
Action!
Welcome to Monoreel Radio, episode number 332. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are here this week to review and discuss Shanghai Knights, the 2003 sequel to Shanghai Noon. We reviewed Shanghai Noon last week for its 25th anniversary, and we said, you know what? We've done the first one. Let's just roll right into the sequel. I think because we both walked away from last week thinking, hey, that was kind of a fun romp. And I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me that sort of misses movies like this, so I kind of wanted to live in this realm for a little longer.
I think for me, I also loved Rush Hour 2. I think I like Rush Hour 2 more than the original.
Yeah.
So I think I was kind of hoping for that lightning in a bottle with this one, where they built on something good and made it better.
Right, and sort of hoping that they would continue to build on that universe. Well, did they plus it up the way that we had hoped? Did this franchise need a sequel, and what is going on with a potential third film? That, on top of many other things, is what we are here to discuss today.
This episode is sponsored by Fierce Fox Co., designers of handmade silkscreen shirts. Fierce Fox has a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or crew neck for every fandom. So whether it's the movies or theme parks, princesses or villains, the MCU or Star Wars, everyone will find something they love. The designs range from subtle quotes from our favorite films to iconic characters we can wear proudly in so many different styles, such as sketchbook and concert tees. Listeners of Monoreel Radio can get a 20% discount using the code Monoreel at checkout. Visit fiercefoxco.com to check out all of the collections.
It's 1887 in the Forbidden City. Lord Rathbone and his men infiltrate and steal the Imperial Seal. The keeper of the seal, Chan Wang's father, is killed, but as he lay dying, he gives Chan Lin, Wang's sister, a puzzle box to give to her brother. Chan Wang lives in the Old West in Carson City. He is now a decorated lawman, while Roy O'Banion becomes a novelized legend as he lives in New York City. Chan Wang receives the puzzle box in the mail and heads east to find Roy and collect the money that Roy invested for them. This was the gold that they had gotten from their previous adventure. We learn that Chan Lin followed Rathbone to London, where he has returned home, so Chan Wang needs the money to travel there and take down his father's killer. We also learn that Roy lost all of their gold and that he works as a waiter at the Ritz, and he also moonlights as a gigolo. Apparently, he invested all of their gold, or at least we thought, into a Zeppelin. They stow away in cargo and head to London on a ship. They meet a young man who pickpockets Roy. Turns out that the boy named Charlie broke away from a workhouse. When his keepers try to capture him, Chan Wang and Roy intervene, leading to chaos, landing them in jail. Investigator Artie Doyle befriends them and quickly releases them after he says that this gang that was going after Charlie is a gang that he had been pursuing for 2 years. They are reunited with Chan Lin, who was arrested after breaking into Rathbone's house and attempting to kill him. Chan and Roy reunite with Charlie, who helped them break into a penthouse and steal an invitation to a gala at Rathbone's estate. Roy devises a plan where they acquire the Imperial Seal to prove Rathbone's guilt. They go to find Rathbone's library, where Chan opens a secret passageway before the pair are pursued by Rathbone's men. Chan Lin escapes the jail and arrives to save them. They follow Rathbone and see him hand the Imperial Seal to Wu Chao, the illegitimate brother of the Emperor of China. After a scuffle, Charlie arrives and steals the seal. Rathbone reports Roy and Chan to the authorities as they are separated from each other once again. Eventually, they are found by Lin, who Roy is smitten with. Roy overhears Chan Wang tell his sister that Roy is dishonest and he forbids their union, causing friction between the pair. Though they quickly fix that relationship, thanks to Chan Wang setting up a gala of women for Roy to choose from, and a pillow fight ensues. Well, Chan Lin sees what has happened and runs off brokenhearted. She is pursued by Jack the Ripper, but fights him off. Rathbone and his boxers capture Chan and Roy and present them to Wu Chao, who has also captured Lin. Roy admits that he spent the remaining gold money to publish the Roy O'Banion novels that he himself is ghostwriting. Chan allows Roy to see, but promises to harm him if he hurts his sister. So the agreement is you can see her, but I will punish you if you do something wrong. We learn that Rathbone, stole the seal to give to Chow in exchange for a machine gun that they will use to kill the royal family and slide Rathbone up the 10 slots he needs to become the King of England. The two break out of captivity without Lin and go to Artie for help. They break into Madame Tussauds Wax Museum to find that this is where Charlie sleeps after hours. They fend off a few more boxers and find the seal, which they give to Chow in exchange for Lin, or so we thought, before they are again arrested. They learn that the Queen's Jubilee is that night, and Chow will kill the royal family. Charlie breaks Roy, Chan, and Artie out of captivity and introduces himself as Charlie Chaplin. At the Jubilee, we see that Chow actually has Lin, and that even though he released her, she didn't escape, and will open fire on the royals during the fireworks display at midnight. Chan rescues Lin while Roy leaves to warn the royals as to what happens. However, Chow opens fire on them, and Chan has to fight him off to save the family. Lin uses a mortar to kill Chow, and Rathbone shoots Artie before he can arrest him. Chan and Roy go after Rathbone. They fight on Big Ben, and Roy is feared dead by Chan after he falls from the tower, though he has clung onto the clock on the outside. Chan kills Rathbone and sees that Roy is not dead. They are knighted by the Queen. Roy ends up with Lin, and Artie pursues his dream of being a writer after he brings the seal back to China. Meanwhile, as the Imperial Seal is returned, Roy and Chan open the puzzle box, revealing a stone that Chan's father had left him with a secret message telling him that he is to cast his own stone. The pair decide to go to Hollywood and invest in silent pictures, where Chan Wang can become a silent movie star, and they think that Chan Wang is a terrible name for a movie star to have.
Gala of Women, that was a very nice
They're in a brothel.
There.
They're in a brothel.
Again.
But I'm trying to keep this family. Why all these years now am I trying to keep this family friendly? I don't know. But that's where they go.
We're getting so deep into the touch tones and the Hollywood pictures of it all. Like, keeping this family friendly is going to become increasingly difficult.
Yeah, eventually we'll pivot back into some Disney, but we'll get there eventually. All right, let's start off at the beginning. It seems like a reasonable place, right?
I had compared the opening of the first one to a Wes Anderson film because it was so beautifully shot. And now we get this cheap CGI, but this was 2003. This was the boom, right? Like, there were those rare movies like Pirates of the Caribbean that did it so well, but this is really when Hollywood started leaning into this idea of cheaper and faster with CGI. And I remember that very specifically because this was about when I was applying to colleges and choosing, my life's path. And it was a very scary time to be getting into the industry because so many jobs were being replaced by visual effects.
Yeah, I think the open is great in that I think the fight choreography is great. I think the costumes are outstanding. And I think that it is a very natural transition from the end of the first film into the second film. Like, I don't feel like it's too much of a stretch. You're giving me a look. I don't think it's too much of a stretch. It's a sequel in an action film. Okay, you've never seen Lethal Weapon.
Right away.
I think that it does make sense. It's a reasonable place to pick up where they left off. But it does... to your point, the open of the first film is so beautiful that the backgrounds in this film are just not as good, folks. I'm getting that out of the way right off the rip.
Yeah, it's really not as beautifully shot, and especially with the first one, it was so intentional to contrast China and the West with, a very structured, symmetrical shoot for China.
Yeah.
And while you did have some of these big sweeping vistas in the West because, they wanted to showcase shooting on location, it was filmed and edited very quick and chaotic, and that was all done intentional. Here, it's just shot like a straight action film. But where I disagree with you more is the picking up where they left off. I cannot stand any sequel that expects the audience to buy into characters that we've never even hinted at. Like, if Chan had like an unknown child, fine. I will buy that one. But we never heard anything about his family life. He seemed like kind of a loner. That's sort of why, or I think that was kind of implied as to why he would choose to start his life over in the West. So to have the father and sister come out of nowhere, it feels very forced for the storyline. And it even waters down the play on words with the name, because Chan Lin is the sister, so Chan is the family name. And maybe this humor is a little dated because Roy dubbing him John Wayne, it is sort of a play on the language barrier, which is obviously something that you wouldn't see written into a movie now, but it was a running bit in the first one and they carry it through this one. But more to the point, it's giving Chan the daddy issues for the sake of conflict. When Princess Peipei chose to stay behind for her people in the first one, that would probably be considered a very noble thing. So why would his father look down upon him for choosing to stay with her, especially because they alluded to a romantic relationship between them? Like, you would think these are all things that would make the family proud, even though Chan was not going to carry on the father's role of protecting the seal.
I think his father looking down upon him makes sense in that, yes, he went with Peipei, who, by the way, has not married him. She's not with him right now. They do make a mention of that she's, I think, in San Francisco continuing her work, is how it was phrased. In other words, you didn't want to pay her. You didn't want to pay Lucy Liu.
Yeah, so one-off line, and they wrote her out.
She's gone. But they did it. In a lot of sequels, you don't hear about these characters ever again. This was the throwaway line you needed. She's not here. Here's where she is, and we've moved on. So I think the father would look at this from the perspective of, and this is a big thing in the culture, especially when you're working for the emperor, so to speak. It's God and country, for a lack of a better term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your job is to be here protecting our history, protecting this, and he's off being Chan Wang in the old West, rootin' tootin' shootin'. So I can buy the notion that his father is disappointed in him, even though he's done everything right. Noble, from a morale perspective, he's doing all the right things here. He didn't do the right thing by his people.
I'll give you that one. Speaking of characters being gone without a trace, while they did give us a reasoning for Princess Peipei not being in the sequel, absolutely nothing on the chief's daughter, which is very disappointing, because at the end of the first one, I called it out the last time, the switcheroo was completely unmotivated, but you bothered to do it, and now you're not going to pick up that thread. But I do completely buy the notion that Roy is right back where he started, and of course he would write a book, right?
Yeah, I think that's where it's a seamless transition from one film to the next. Roy is off in New York. He has become this novelized hero. Of course, we don't know this yet, but he is the ghostwriter of these stories
Wait, you didn't know that? Like just in the scene, like you didn't just assume that he was hyping himself up. The fighting mummies didn't give it away for you?
Well, no, I knew he was hyping himself up. I didn't know that meant he was writing the book, quite honestly, because I don't think Roy O'Banion can write a book. So that was why I just assumed it wasn't him. But the fact that he's in this like beautiful white tuxedo at the Ritz in Manhattan, he's got all of these women around him throwing champagne, throwing their hotel room keys at him. I'm like, oh, Roy Dunn hit it big. All to find out that he's a waiter in uniform and he gets the money from being a gigolo. Like, this is all perfect.
The transition is hilarious when he's like, I'm going to go get us some more champagne.
Yes.
But he goes to the bar because, like,
he's got to bring it to the table. It's his job.
The only thing that I don't love is that he squandered all of the money. I totally buy, like, okay, he's single again, so of course he's going to be surrounded by loose women, and, you know, he went to go make it in the big city, even though when we left him off, he and Chan were partners. They were no longer the outlaws. They were the law enforcers. So given Roy's history, I can see where that would get old really quick. I would see where he would want to, you know, gamble again and just be a little bit more free. I'll buy all of that. But what I don't love is that he lost all of their money, because that was the thing that you expected him to do throughout the first one, and he never actually did. Especially when you think about the end in the church, after Chan has taken everyone out, he's like, where's Roy? Where's the gold? And you think that Roy has disappeared with it, but he had just hidden it from everyone. So I feel like this was a little bit too much of a regression, because he did the thing that you expected him to do, but he was actually too good of a person to do in the first one. And now that he's done it, I feel like you knocked him down a peg.
I don't agree with that, because he didn't just spend it on booze and loose women, right? He invested in the Zeppelin.
Did he?
Yes. We have nothing to prove he didn't. He invested in the Zeppelin as opposed to the automobile. It was a bad investment, but he invested the money to grow the money. We later find out that the rest of the gold that was left, he used to print the novels that he had written. So, and in fact, he said, we were second to the Bible that year.
Great line.
Phenomenal
Great
line. But he had printed 1 million copies of these books. I think it's interesting. If I have a problem with this, it's not that he spent the money in long-term investments. It's that he's become a well-known writer into England. So technically speaking, he printed all of these books. These books are selling. Maybe they're just not selling enough, and it's a very niche market. But you would think that if he's got these books and he's got this notoriety overseas, he would have sold the 1 million copies. They would have made their money back. I thought that was a bit of a miss. I wish that they would have covered that up a little bit more, because it seems like these books were a success.
See, I don't think so. Just because you printed them doesn't mean that they're selling. So,
well, I need that covered up, though.
Yeah. That we could have had a little bit more clarity, but I feel like you sort of get it from Doyle, because Doyle just seems like a fanboy. But you're right, because it did reach England. That's where they could have, as Chan is getting mad at Roy, there could have been a one-off line to cover the tracks, exactly as you said, that just because you printed the books doesn't mean that they sold. I think what confuses that is, to your point, the reach to England. But I think it's more because Doyle is a fanboy. And this is, you know, like his interest. He actually does kind of seem like an Americophile. So of course he would love books about the West. And I think because he's hyping up the book so much, it makes it seem more successful than it actually is. So a throwaway line would have helped to cover it up in the argument. Like Chan could have even called him out of, you know, you printed all of these books. I see them everywhere. But I'm seeing them in stores, not in people's hands. Something to that
Yeah, you
effect.
printed too many of them.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the first scene, though, that we have with Chan Wang and Roy at the Ritz after everything gets exposed, and Roy immediately goes, "Nope, I got us the money. You'll do whatever it takes because you have to get to London to find your sister and kill Rathbone. Just be in this room, take this key, go to this room." And it's because Roy is assuming that Chan Wang is going to sleep with a woman for money. Just because he's like, I'm going to sleep with her for money. It's so funny, the line. And when they eventually do find out that it's the mayor's daughters and the police arrive, when Roy opens that door, but Chan Wang is adjusting the woman's back.
Oh my God.
The shot is phenomenal because at a glance, you could really misconstrue what's happening in that room. But the fact that they're both fully clothed, he's like, I'm fixing her back. I thought it was hysterical.
The role reversal is also hilarious because in the West, they were going and patronizing the brothels because that's what Roy did. And he was trying to get Chan to appreciate his lifestyle. But now that the shoe is on the other foot and he just expects him to go through with this for money is absolutely hilarious. Their escape from the hotel is even better. Like, just when you thought the fights couldn't be any more innovative, they have Chan in a revolving door against the cops where he's using the luggage rack and like tying the cops with their own batons to the rack, taking off their coats and their hats and using that to secure that. Like, it's just so brilliant. And the camera work is incredible too, because you have to be, both in and outside of the hotel. It's unreal. It's such a perfectly choreographed scene.
Yeah, and the fact that it's not only the fight, but Chan is having articles of his clothing removed, whether it be his hat, his jacket, and it's basically like watching a Rubik's Cube because now the cops are also losing articles. But by the time it's all said and done, everybody's back in uniform the way that they should be. Like, it's unbelievable. It's one of the best choreographed scenes I've ever seen in any film.
So then Roy gets them out. He has them shipped to London, basically. And they have a really nice moment on the voyage over where Roy's like, I'm in this. I'll do it for friendship and loyalty, even though there's nothing for me to gain. And then, he roys it up and he's like, well, I hear the women in London are really pretty. But like, it's just a really nice beat for their friendship.
Yeah, because I think you sort of needed that. I love Howdy. It's a perfect little pickup from the first film where Chan Wang is walking around the streets of London to people he doesn't know going, howdy, because that's how he's been told to behave in the West. I know that that's just a little quick one-off line, and we get it again at the end with the Queen of England, but I'm glad that they carried that over.
No, but when you think about it too, it's also pretty brilliant because like, how insulting to do that to the English. We won. This is what we did with our time.
Oh, and Roy is no stranger to pointing out how sore losers they are.
Oh God, yeah,
it's hysterical.
That rant is pretty great.
Somebody overseas just shut off Monoreel Radio. It's okay. It's okay. Let's talk about the fight that happens because we get introduced to what turns out to be a young Charlie Chaplin as he pickpockets Roy.
True, by the way. Charlie Chaplin did grow up in England in poverty, even though his parents were actors.
So I love that. I think that's great. And now you get this fight scene between this gang who's really there to capture Charlie and put him back into a workhouse. So you can figure out what that is, folks. I love the fact that Chan Wang and Roy are still going to fight for the good guy. And this fight scene, it reminded me of like the Wild West stunt show that they used to have at Universal Studios. Almost more so than the stunts that we saw in Shanghai Noon, which took place in the Old West.
Yeah.
But again, the choreographed scene is really, really well done here.
I agree. I like that they have a soft spot for Charlie, even though he is the one who pickpocketed Roy's watch, which his uncle stole. So it's just
Yeah.
this ill-gotten watch through and through. But there's a part of Roy that sees himself in Charlie. And to your point, they're going to stand up for the little guy. So I like that, even though maybe they don't go about it in the best of ways and they're the ones beating everybody up, their heart still shows. This scene though, I thought the revolving door was brilliant, and then they managed to one up themselves with this market fight. Just when you think Chan's back is against the wall, they've got him over a table of lemons and he starts squirting them in people's eye, which when you think about it, that's awful. That's gotta burn like no other. That's great. The fight on the rooftop where they're using the awning as like a springboard to launch the bad guy, the ladder choreography, and then there's this great bit where one of the bad guys is trying to reach for his knife and it's under this box that Chan is balancing on top of. So every time he goes to grab it, Chan drops one leg to try and crush his hand. It is so good. And I know we talked about this last week. Jackie Chan's choreography and his stunt work is absolutely unreal. But I think this is one of the best instances of how incredible he really is. And again, the resourcefulness of just using the set and using the props and using what you have to create these scenes. It's amazing.
Now the pair get thrown in jail. And we meet investigator Artie Doyle, who is obviously a fanboy of the pair, including the sidekick, the Shanghai Kid. And then you get Chan Lin is also in jail because she has attempted to assassinate Rathbone. I thought that this made sense as a way of setting up their reunion. But I'm going to get this out of the way right now because it's going to get repetitive and I'm going to say it too many times if I don't just get it out of the way now. There's too much, we're together, we're broken apart. We're together, we're broken apart. We're together, we're broken apart. It's way too frequent when it comes to Chan Lin and Roy and Chan Wang.
I mean, that's kind of how they did the first one, though, because the chief's daughter was always coming to the rescue.
But the chief's daughter was always kind of lingering in the background. Like, you knew she was sort of there.
True. But I do think that this sort of speaks to the sibling dynamic because the reason that Lynn got herself thrown in jail is because she was not subtle about this assassination attempt. And I feel like that's kind of a common thread throughout the rest of the film is she goes big and she doesn't really have a plan where, and I mean, Roy's kind of like that too. He improvises, but I feel like Chan is a lot more subtle in his approach. And that's where he's always trying to be the big brother and let me handle it. And she's just going in guns blazing. So I feel like that all kind of works actually. I love how they're using Doyle's fanboy status against him to get out of jail. And I like that before he knows who Roy is, he reads the watch. And, it is a good Easter egg for the character, for who he eventually becomes. But I love that he just completely calls out all of Roy's faults, basically, just from this one piece that he has from him.
So now we're all broken apart again. And Roy and Chan Wang run into Charlie. And Charlie basically breaks them into a penthouse that nobody is currently in. Doesn't matter where these people are. I don't know if they're on vacation. It's irrelevant. But they break in so that they can get a change of clothes, so that Roy can drink his brandy, and in his mind, teach Charlie a new trade. I do like the fact that we do establish that the reason why he's so hard on Charlie throughout the entire film is that he sees a lot of himself in Charlie. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't want Charlie to make the same mistakes that he did. I love that they did that. There is some fault, I think, with that, but we'll get to that in a little while. But this is where they establish that, Roy says, we have to get the seal. It'll prove Rathbone's guilt. And of course, it's Roy, so it's a rootin' tootin' shootin', break in here, do this. And all the while, on the mantle is an invitation to this gala.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Charlie and Chan Wang are work smarter, not harder. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
I agree. I really like this scene, but I do wish we knew exactly where they were. Because it sort of looks like what they use, the set, it looks like what they use for Doyle's apartment later. And that would work because if he's at work, the house would be vacant. I care less about whose house it is and more about how Charlie knew it was going to be empty, why this is his rest house. And, I do care a little bit about whose it is because they had the invitation to the Jubilee. And that was how they realized they were going to stage their first attack or first attempt to get the seal back. It is a funny scene, though. Like, Roy's got everything drawn out in crayon.
Yeah.
They're going to launch themselves in, like, Monty Python style. It is pretty funny. But the big takeaway, to your point, is that, yes, we do learn that Roy sees himself in Charlie. But we also learn that we need Charlie because he's got the street smarts that they don't have. They are fish out of water. He knows the ins and outs of this city. He's scrappy. He's been surviving on his own. So this is where I feel more of the break apart and come back together. I feel it less with Lynn and more with Charlie because they need him. It is established that they need him. And then they keep, I'll buy the notion of Roy brushing him off and like, let us handle this, let the grownups take care of it. But he does keep popping in and out, much like the chief's daughter who is keeping an eye on things. But there are full scenes where we don't see him, where he should jump in just in the nick of time. But I do like the lookout for number one coming back to bite Roy.
Yeah. So now we get to this gala where they are in disguise and Roy makes, because he looks at a grandfather clock because he's got to give a name because they're being announced as they arrive, and he makes up the name Sherlock Holmes. But Chan Wang being the Maharaja of Nevada. Oh
boy. While that line is very funny because, obviously they just pulled it out of the air. The cultural appropriation of Roy telling Chan to shake his head because it'll make it look more authentic. Not great, but on brand for these two. And you could tell that they were having so much fun filming this because they are kind of laughing at each other. And I don't think that that's, anything having to do with their performance for the character. I think they're just getting a big old yuck out of filming this.
Oh my God, they are. And one of the best lines in the movie is when they're on the buffet line and the server offers them spotted dick, and Roy looks at John Wang and goes, "This guy thinks I have the clap." It's so good. It's so funny. And I'm glad that they didn't, because there are those kind of ridiculous sounding, at borderline inappropriate sounding names for food and beverage. And I love that they didn't shy away from it. I love that they give you the belly laugh, that it pays off because it's Owen Wilson's delivery that is so good. And the fact that they didn't break while they were saying it, at least not that we saw it, like the laugh was worth it. The payoff is there.
Some of the writing was so elevated compared to Shanghai Noon when you think about like, them having to wet the cloth so that he can bend the bars and like less toilet humor, more snappy one-liners in this one.
I agree. I think the laughs in this film are bigger than they were in Shanghai Noon.
So, certainly I did.
Yeah.
I had a couple of belly laughs that I didn't have in the first one. I love the study set. Once they get on Rathbone's trail, they're peering through the wall at him and then he disappears. So they realize, of course, there's got to be, a secret door, a secret something. It is, in fact, a secret fireplace that rotates to a room where he's got all of his, collection hidden. For the sight gags in the fight, this is brilliant, but I feel like the fireplace takes a little bit too long to not even rotate around because it swings pretty fast, but they don't reveal Chan as quickly as I feel like they should. Like, I feel like it could be paced up a lot more because Roy, of course, gives up because he finds the Kuma Sutra and he sits down with it to read it. And Chan is being attacked behind him. But I feel like there are too many pauses where you don't see Chan. But the rest of this fight choreography with the bookshelf and the ladder is incredible. Again, I love this set. It's great.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and definitely, I think, one of the best fight scenes that we've had in either one of these two films. But it's back to what I said before. Like, we split apart because now Chan Lin is there, and then we get split up again, and Charlie was there and has the seal, and now we split up again. The problem with splitting up from Charlie specifically is that they build him into having such a huge role in this film. To your point, he's the street smarts. Now he's got the seal. And they almost seem like they're not even trying to pursue him because, well, we need the seal, but also there are going to be bad guys on his heels. Now we have to go find him because we have to protect him.
Yeah.
It seems like there was a lot of lost opportunity for that. I think there was lost opportunity, perhaps, for them to pursue him. It could have been something as easy as Charlie misinterprets how rough Roy is being with him. We know why Roy is being so rough on him. He maybe just was being a young child and stormed off and ran away. And now he's got this seal and he doesn't realize what he's got. And now he's getting pursued. And now we've got to rescue him. Instead, he's there when it's convenient. And because he's such an important character, it's too important for him to just come and go. And I think that there was a missed opportunity here. Maybe they didn't want him to be short round. Maybe they didn't want to draw the comparison to that character. But if you're going to write this character this way where he means this much, guess what? You wrote short round. So you gotta lean into it.
I completely agree. I mean, here's the thing. I don't mind that he ends up with the seal. I think that's actually very good, especially because, as I mentioned before, Roy told him in the apartment, you got to look out for number one. And that's what he says when he takes the seal from Roy.
Yeah.
Where it's an even bigger missed opportunity, I agree with you, is not only, we've established that Roy sees himself in Charlie, but Roy, this entire time that he's trying to pursue Lynn, keeps saying, I'm ready to settle down. I'm ready to be a father, even though you had the chief's daughter, but whatever. This is the chance to show us and not tell us you're ready to be a father because you want to protect him. It's not about getting the seal back for you. Like, yes, it's about getting the seal back for Chan and you want to help Chan, but more for you, this is the B story. You have a personal investment in this kid and you have that paternal instinct with him. That's a huge missed opportunity. But otherwise, the scene's pretty good because we see what a villain Rothbone really is because he's setting the whole barn on fire, which you kind of knew was going to happen. There's hay, it's going to ignite easily. He's got the torch that they, use to light the secret passage. You know that this is going to happen. Chan lifts Lynn into the rafters. She's able to escape from the roof. There's actually another pretty funny line where Roy's like, what in our entire history makes you think that I'm going to do that? And then they take the automobile, which Roy didn't think was a good investment, and use it to crash through the barn and escape the fire. This is another one of those scenes where it's like Chan and Roy disappear, and this is just Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan having fun. And I don't care that they're breaking character. They look like they are having such a ball. The only thing that I bump on a little bit is that they have some modern music playing over this scene.
Yeah.
And as much as I love a London punk rock, I feel like it's very jarring. And what would have been a great callback was to have like some sort of Western music, like that you would expect to see with a stagecoach chase, to parallel the first one. I feel like that would have been really effective here. But otherwise, it's still very funny.
So now, quickly separated, but Chan Lin is there, and we're reunited, and we end up in this brothel.
Again.
This
is very much lather, rinse, repeat of the first one.
And the fact that Roy overhears Chan Wang tell Chan Lin, this was fine. If this is what they wanted to do with it, this was fine. He overhears him say, Roy is not the kind of friend that you introduce to friends and family. And let's call it what it is. We all have that friend.
Yeah.
And we recognize that we have that friend.
And you love that friend.
But you never think that it must really hurt that friend to hear that. We say it about people every day. We all say it about somebody every day. But you don't stop and think what it must be like for that person to kind of know that they are that person, or to find out that they are that person. And in this case, it's Roy. I think it was a great opportunity for them to add a little bit of drama with these two. I think that it was a great opportunity. Chan Wang opens up a gaggle of women for Roy. And of course, Roy gets baited in with a pillow fight. Oh, God. I wish that, and I'm glad that Chan Wang did this. What they needed to do was have Roy walk away and not give in. Because Chan's just doing the thing that's going to make Roy happy. But what's really going to make Roy happy is ending up with Chan Lin. So instead, he gives in because he's a weak man. Let's call it what it is. It's all in service of Chan Lin seeing that Roy is the exact person that her brother warned her about. So I'm fine with it building to that, but it builds to it within about 90 seconds. I think you needed to give this time. If you're not going to have the B storyline with Charlie, you have to have it with Chan Lin. And I think that you needed to develop this over a few scenes, and then if you want him to cave, then let him cave. It happens way too fast.
I agree with you. What I bump on the most is that this is a straight retread of a scene in Shanghai Noon. Because when they're in the brothel, Roy is telling one of the women, oh, but he's not really my friend. And that has more to do with racism than anything else. And Chan is obviously very hurt. So we're seeing, I mean, this is not exactly the same thing because you're not dealing with race in this case, but the beats are all the same. The setting is exactly the same.
Right.
The overhearing is exactly the same. So that's where I was like, you had so much of an opportunity to do this different and you didn't. And to your point, there was a missed opportunity for conflict to have Roy walk away, especially when he commit to John, when there's nothing in this for him. There's no reward. There's no money. This is about friendship and loyalty, which is also where this is a bigger backstab.
Yeah.
For Chan to say these things when Roy was in this for all of the right reasons for once. So yeah, you absolutely could have done so much more with this. And instead, I feel like a lot of this was just driving not only Lynn to see Roy for who he really is, but to get her out and to take out Jack the Ripper. Funny.
Yeah, funny.
But also what surprised me about this film overall, because we're going to get more Easter eggs like that, is like the Forrest Gumpification of it all, where things that our characters are doing are alluding to real life. And it was just such kind of a weird transition because there was nothing like that in the first one.
Agreed. So from there, you get the true motivation of what Rathbone and Chow are doing with each other, right? I think the motivation's great for both. I think it makes sense. Like, this is a good partnership. These are two really good villains. Rathbone is 10th to the throne.
He is Hans of the Southern Isles.
So I have to figure out a way to get to the top of the food chain. Wu Chao wants to be the emperor, and he's Loki, right? He's Loki.
Yeah.
So I love that you play on this idea of, well, if I get you the seal and you get me the machine gun, we kill the royals, I get what I want, you have the seal, you get what you want, we both walk away from this at the top of the food chain. I thought the motivation between the two of them was absolutely perfectly written.
I agree. I like I scratch your back, you scratch mine, but we're not actually working together. And I feel like this was so much more streamlined than Shanghai Noon, when you had like 3 groups at it for different reasons and one was hired by another. This, I like that they're actually working together. They're never going to be partners. They're just going to walk away when this is all done, but they both need each other to get what they want. Yeah, I really liked that.
I just wish we would have spent a little bit more time with them because they're both really good villains.
Yeah.
This is something that Shanghai Knights falls victim to the same thing that happens in Shanghai Noon, where you do not spend enough time with the villain. The villain is really good. There's a lot of opportunity to expand on the villain, and they didn't do it.
Well, he's ready to kill his entire family with a machine gun. Like that's a real evil person. And I feel like it gets glossed over because it's part of the plot, not actually like, what made you tick to form this elaborate, like, you're going to kill your mother.
I don't know that it is his mother. He's a lord. I don't know that that's his actual mother.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know enough about...
Because then he would be a prince,
the
not
breakdown.
A lord.
That's true. That is true.
But he's willing to kill the entire family.
Yeah.
Including princes and princesses. That would all be rightful heirs. So he's going to kill a whole family.
Yeah.
Just to be the most powerful one. Like, even still, it's diabolical.
So then we reconvene once everybody's captured because they get Lynn and they're going to frame her. I actually really like this because the tabloids are calling her Looney Lynn, and they're going to frame her for this massacre.
Yeah.
But then they also get Chan and Roy, and they expose the plan to them that we're framing your sister. They have them hung by a hook in a boathouse, and they're just going to lower them until they drown. Naturally, Chan escapes. And for as much as you know what is going to happen next, it is so brilliantly done. He's fighting off the bad guys, and he's obviously trying to keep Roy's head above the water, but they are fighting against the pulley system. So Roy is in and out of the water. It's hilarious. But another really well done fight scene, just using the setting to the full potential.
So we end up now with Artie Doyle again, who is now a disgraced investigator because he's let how many prisoners escape.
It's kind of funny, actually.
It is kind of funny.
Because I'm sure, like, that's the thing. Like, he's not cut out for this. He's feeling bad for people. And that's really what's driving it.
He's wildly intelligent when it comes to reading people and investigating, but that doesn't mean he's a good police officer.
Yeah.
Now we end up at Madame Tussauds.
I love this.
Great fight scene. Great everything. Great use of the set again. And this is where we reconvene with who we now know as Charlie Chaplin.
I love that he is hiding out in there in one of the scenes. I just love that they incorporated Madame Tussauds because I feel like everybody knows, the touristy ones in the middle of Times Square and in LA where they have all of the celebrity wax figures. But the one in New York actually gives you the history of why these wax figures are such a thing. And it was because during, I believe it was the French Revolution, if they couldn't, I'm trying to keep this clean here. If they didn't have a body of the deceased, they made a wax figure for them so that they could still mourn the person And that's how it snowballed from there. I'm sure the intent back in the day was not so that it could be a tourist attraction where you can go take a picture with the Spice Girls and Bon Jovi, but that didn't stop me from doing it. That was I loved going to the one in the city. So it was fun for me to see that here. I love that Charlie is hiding out in the vignette. And where he was hiding the seal was so brilliant. He made it like a garter belt on the Queen too.
Yeah.
That was hysterical that it is hiding in plain sight. But here's where everything sort of comes to a head because Charlie, Roy gets the seal from him and he dismisses him, but he walks right into the trap of Wu Chao's henchmen. And now they have him, with a sword to his throat. So Roy very easily gives up the seal to save Charlie. And this is where it's a good moment. It is the paternal instinct that we need to see kicking in. It is this odd friendship that they have, that he's not going to let anything bad happen to the kid. But it doesn't feel as earned a moment as I think it could be. Just because we didn't have the FaceTime with Charlie, like we've mentioned. But it's still a sweet moment when he's like, why didn't you let them get me? And then they formally introduce themselves. And yes, we learn that he is Charlie Chaplin. Again, the Forrest Gumpification of it all.
Yeah. And I think at the same time, they've got Lynn. Then they give Lynn up. And then somehow they get Lynn back again. Like, I feel like there's something that ended up on the cutting room floor here, because how she was tossed aside for the seal, and then they got her back again. I just don't know how it happened.
Right.
You never see her get captured again.
Next thing we know, we're on the barge.
Yes.
And Chan tells Roy and Doyle, go warn the royal family what's going to happen. I'll save her. I'll save my sister. Another brilliant fight because Wu Chao is unloading the machine gun and Chan has to stop him, then it starts swinging around.
Yeah.
So they're fighting below the bullets flying. And they're still getting in some impressive kicks and hits with the very limited space that they have. It's really well done. And the cinematography is really great, how they choreograph the whole thing.
Yeah, it's great. And then Wu Chao being killed with a mortar, like it's a bazooka. That didn't see that one coming.
No, it's not graphic at all, but the idea of it very much is. And I like that they gave Lynn her moment.
Yes.
To, because they do allude to it. When Chan finally gets to her, she's crying because she thinks it is the end. She knows that her brother's there for her, but she calls him out for being late. And I think that she got really scared, like, oh, is he actually not going to come through for me? So I like that they call that out, and I like that they give her her moment to redeem herself, and I don't need rescuing. I can handle myself.
So we get through that with Wu Chao. Now we are pursuing Rathbone on Big Ben. And Roy is thrown. We think that Chan Wang thinks that he's gone. We can see that he is hanging on to the clock from the outside.
The minute hand.
But you do get a pretty decent fight between Chan Wang and Rathbone. And when he does kill Rathbone, he's not being subtle that he's going to do it. It's very much uncharacteristic of Chan Wang, but I think you needed it. This is Chan Wang pushed to his limits.
I agree, but there's also part of me that feels like the whole Big Ben sequence was too much, because you have taken out one of the bad guys. And that scene on the barge was so beautifully shot, by the way, because you do see Big Ben in the background. They have the whole fireworks display. I feel like that could have been enough, but this was like, oh, we bothered to take the sequel to England. We have to use, one of their most iconic features and do the fight in there. But it's like, we've also seen this in Great Mouse Detective, you know? Like, I'm not saying that they copied the animated film, but I feel like just because you can doesn't mean that you should in this case. And I feel like it was such an obvious thing, and they're obviously going to be teetering. I would have been fine with all of that, but what I bump on the most is that Rothbone has 2 swords against Chan's 1. Okay, fine. We know that Chan can handle himself. But every time Rothbone does make an advance, and he totally has him, they stop the fight and they reset, and it's like, okay, one more. And if Rothbone is following the traditional rules of a duel, okay, but you were about to take out an entire royal family, probably some of which, like we said, you are related to. So why do you keep giving him, really, he gets a second and a third chance? Why? Just because you want to be an English gentleman and follow the rules of a fair fight? You haven't done anything that's fair.
I just think that I can see Michael Eisner being like, okay, but you have to have the villain fall from Big Ben at the end of the movie. And that was like just non-negotiable. I think that's sort of where this whole thing stemmed from. But it ends, they all get knighted. Now he is, and now it is Sir Arthur Doyle who is now going to make sure that the seal goes back to England and then pursue his passion of being a writer. But after he gets permission to use the name Sherlock Holmes from Roy. So I thought that was funny.
I thought it was funny, especially after he tells them how ridiculous they look when they show up at his house in the what they think is a clever disguise, but it is the typical Sherlock Holmes outfit, you know, with the pipe and the hat. It's fun. It's a fine way to wrap up the storyline. I'll buy it. But then you do get the really nice moment where Chan is able to open the puzzle box that his father sent him. That was his dying wish, and he told Lin to get this to him. And he has a stone engraved, and it says something to the effect of, I'm glad that you cast your own stone, and meaning that he does approve the lifestyle that he chose in the States.
Yeah. And then they decide that they're going to go off to Hollywood and pursue the silent films.
And I love that Charlie is a stowaway with them.
Yeah.
That was a nice way to kind of tie everything together. It does very much feel like they were setting up a third.
It does feel like they were setting up a third. Obviously, there were a lot of things to be on the lookout for. Perhaps some things that you noticed on your second or third viewing. Where in the Film is brought to you by our friends at Where in the Park, a seek and find card game that you can play in your favorite parks. Whether it's Disney or Universal, SeaWorld, and more, Where in the Park challenges you to spot those little details that so many can miss. To order your game packs, visit monoreelradio.com and click our affiliate link for a 10% discount today. I want to take it back to the marketplace. I want to take it back to the fight in the marketplace. For a movie that is so perfect when it comes to costume and makeup, much like the first one, this was a big, big miss for me. Charlie, when we meet him, is dirty. He's grungy. He's got soot and dirt all over his face because he's obviously living on the street, right? So as he's being pursued by Roy and Chan Wang and also this street gang, he jumps into a crate to hide. He goes into the crate absolutely filthy. He comes out spotless.
I didn't catch that because I was focused on another part of this market scene. You know, I talked about how brilliant the fight choreography is, and there's one point where Chan picks up an umbrella and he starts fighting with it. And it's actually so incredible. He's got 2 and he hooks the back ends together. So he's using it almost like a giant nunchuck. It's so good. But what really stood out to me was I thought that they were doing it and they started creeping in the music from Singing in the Rain underneath just because he's obviously fighting with an umbrella. And then there's one point where he fully opens the umbrella and they crank the soundtrack up all the way. So I thought that was an interesting film to pay homage to Singing in the Rain. But I like it nonetheless. And you know what? I bet Jackie Chan is probably an incredible dancer because the precision and the the way that he just has to be so agile. I wish that they had done like a little tap dance number and had him do like some, just for the comedy of it all. Being that they bothered to creep the music in, I thought that would have been an even better tribute. But the whole scene is just so brilliant.
All right, let's talk about our cast here. We talked about Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson last week, so we're going to focus on new cast members here, starting with Fan Wong, who plays Chan Lin, Singapore actress, hasn't done a ton in the United States, but I think for the purpose of this film, I thought she was really good. I think I sort of like that she's rough and tumble. She's basically the female version of Roy. I like that the rough and tumble does get her into trouble. She doesn't fail upwards the way that Roy does, but I think for the purpose of the film, I think that she is a good foil to Chan Wang.
I would agree. I thought she was great. I thought the fighting was really great because that was something last week that I bumped on a little bit with Lucy Liu, how it was like she announced every hit that she was about to make with like a grunt or something. This, I feel like with Lin's fight choreography, it felt a lot more Crouching Tiger. And I'm sure a lot of that was coming off the success of that movie, but I like that they sort of leaned into it with her costume a little bit. Like she definitely had like a more flowy robe than Princess Pepe did to sort of lean into all of the jumps and aerial stuff that she was going to do. I thought that was really cool.
We have Tom Fisher as Artie Doyle. I thought he was a lot of fun. He's lighthearted. He provided good comedy when it was necessary, and I thought that this was a worthwhile sidekick to have. Just like a very much a secondary character, but a good secondary character.
I would agree with that, especially because he is part of Scotland Yard, so you would expect him to be the antagonist, and I like the irony that he's not, that he is silently helping them. He reminds me very much of Andy Samberg. He looks a little bit like him, I think, and the delivery too sometimes, especially the fanboying. I thought it was really funny.
Aaron Johnson plays Charlie Chaplin, young child actor at the time that he made this film. You would know him better as Pietro Maximoff in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yep.
But one of his first, if not his first foray into Disney. I mean, he was great in this movie. It's no surprise that he has had the career that he has had since then.
I mean, he's insanely talented, and you can see it even as a child. He was a little scene stealer for sure.
Yeah. You've got Aidan Gillen as Lord Rathbone. He's so good. He's so good. That dark presence that he has, it's brooding, but it's calculated. He's incredibly quick-witted. I absolutely loved him in this movie.
Great character. I think what really lent to it is that he's really handsome. So, he doesn't look the part of the villain. It is very much Hans of the Southern Isle.
He could be James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that also really lends itself to just being such a great diabolical character because it's coming from a place where you really wouldn't expect it.
Donnie Yen plays Wu Chao, the other villain in the film, and I thought he was great. As I said before, I wish that we would have spent a little bit more time with this character. I thought his motivation was great. I thought their relationship together was great. His fight choreography was outstanding. He was great opposite Jackie Chan. Yeah, I just wish we would have had a little bit more time with him.
Agree. Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like it, love it, want more of it. From the moment he gets in the back of Rothbone's car, they do call it out because Rothbone's like, "Are you crazy being seen with me?" So they do address why they can't have that many scenes together because they're while they're working together, they can't let on to it. But I wish that maybe we had gotten a little bit more time when Lin is captured, just to give him a little bit more screen time.
Final thoughts on Shanghai Knights. I'll go first. I can be quick. All in all, this is a fun film. It's a ton of fun. I think that it is a reasonable sequel. I think that it makes sense as a sequel. I don't think a lot of it felt forced. I would say it's as good as the first one. It should be better than the first one. All of the parts are there where I'll say this, I think I enjoy this better than the first film, but I don't think it's better than the first film. And I think the reason for that is because there were just too many missed opportunities. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the fights were great. I thought the laughs were better. I would have gladly taken 8 to 10 more minutes of screen time for you to flesh out some of these B stories, and you didn't. And I felt like you didn't because, well, we can't have a movie that's 2 hours and 25 minutes. You do it all the time. This movie could have been 10 minutes longer, and no one would have cared that much. For those reasons, for the fact that the misses are so fixable, and for the fact that we carry over again this trend where we're not spending enough time with the villain. It's so fixable. And I think I kind of have to punish it for that reason. And that's why I put it just a tick below the first one. But in reality, I think it's probably better than the first film.
For the most part, I agree. I think that in the setup, and I'm not saying through the entire plot, but just in the setup, I think that there are some things that we are reaching for as far as a sequel goes, just to get that story out. But I do feel like they bounce back pretty quickly and pretty hard, actually. I agree with you. I don't think that overall this is better than Shanghai Noon, but there are scenes that are better. Not even just beats and lines. I feel like there are full out scenes that are better. So I guess all of that's to say, if you like the first one, you will definitely like the second one. I don't feel like it wasn't worth doing or it was too much of a good thing. I definitely think it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it. But, you know, go in with both of them. Expectations low. They're fun romps.
Yeah, and this was supposed to be the bridge film in a trilogy. There was a third film that had been developed where we were going to follow Roy and Chan Wang to Hollywood, where he did become a successful silent film actor. And then they were going to bring the story back to China because it was Jackie Chan's vision for the third film was that they would showcase the vistas of China the way they showcased the vistas of the Old West in the first film. By 2016, I think they even had they had the script written. Jackie Chan was the one that decided he no longer wanted to produce it. I'm wondering if part of that is because he aged out of doing movies like this. He doesn't do a lot of film anymore. The film that you have seen him do was that god-awful Karate Kid remake, and now the Karate Kid sequel, where he's sort of playing that Miyagi role. I mean, the man he's got to be 80 years old or close to it at this point. So he's not going to do the stunt work that he used to. And I'm thinking that's probably why, but there was supposed to be a third film. That was the premise, and they just didn't pursue it.
That is the trilogy formula, or at least it used to be before, you know, things like Marvel happened. But when you think about things like Scream or even Jay and Silent Bob, the third one is always, let's make a movie about it. And then they're able to continue their franchise or finish up the franchise in a third film by poking fun at themselves.
Right. Well, we are interested what you have to say about Shanghai Knights. You can let us know on all forms of social media at Monoreel Radio, or you can send us an email, monoreelradio@gmail.com. News of the week is coming up, but first a quick break.
News of the Week is proudly sponsored by KMV Travel. KMV Travel is a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories in the happiest place on earth. If you've dreamed of visiting Waltz Park or racing with Lightning McQueen in Cars Land, a KMV Travel specialist will work with you to customize the perfect getaway for you and your family. Your KMV travel advisor will ensure you know the ins and outs of the My Disneyland app, assist with dining reservations, and of course, share their favorite hacks so you can get the most out of your vacation. Visit kmvtravel.com to soar over to California now.
If you're thinking of booking a trip to a Disney destination, you have to contact Jackie Zalezi. My husband and I recently celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary and wanted to go on a trip, just the two of us. Jackie suggested Disneyland, knowing we'd never been and I had been dreaming of going. I am so thankful for her suggestion, as it was the most magical way to celebrate. Jackie got us a fantastic deal, but still constantly checked for discounts to make sure we were guaranteed the lowest price. Having recently visited Disneyland, she was a great source for helpful information and had suggestions for everything, including meals, Max Pass, even places to visit in Los Angeles on our non-park day. Upon arrival at our hotel, we experienced the easiest check-in because Jackie had taken care of everything. Throughout our trip, Jackie was in constant contact, making sure we had everything we needed and answering any questions we had. Our vacation was perfect.
Piston Peak is coming to Walt Disney World. We have the concept art for the new Cars-themed land that is coming to the Magic Kingdom. And I'll be honest with you, I had a lot of hesitation in accepting the idea that they were going to bring Cars to the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, because I thought that we were leaving the idea of a park at Magic Kingdom and that we were turning into a concrete playground, because I assumed, maybe wrongfully so, that we were going to expand on Radiator Springs. We are not expanding on Radiator Springs. Instead, we are getting Piston Point. There's still going to be waterways, there's going to be trees, there's going to be green. I'm excited about this because I feel like it will fit the aesthetic that is Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. I think that it's great that it will still incorporate Big Thunder Mountain without it feeling forced. And I'm happy that we're getting something different, because this was Disney's thing the whole time, right? You get one thing on the East Coast, one thing on the West Coast. Galaxy's Edge sort of broke the mold on that. I'm glad that we're not getting a replication, and we're getting a new character, Ranger J. Autobahn Woodlore. It's a mouthful, but he is going to be the ranger at Piston Peak that is going to greet you as you arrive. So we're getting a new area that we've never seen in the Cars franchise. We're getting a new character we haven't seen in the Cars franchise, but I'm now... My excitement is invigorated. I am happy to see that this is the route that they are taking, and I can't wait to see what Imagineering does with this.
Are we getting something new, though? I can't take credit for this. I have to give credit where credit is due. Our good friend Mason, who you know from our Haunted Mansion review and his Haunted Mansion deep dives on TikTok, Mr. Unofficial CEO, he did a really great video where he recognized something familiar in the concept art that they released, which I agree with you there. I am very happy to see that Disney listened. They realized why people were upset, that, to your point, it was turning into a concrete wonderland. There was not enough shade in the initial concept art that they released. And not only that, but people were very upset about taking out the whole waterway. So I was very happy that they took the criticism and they figured out a way to keep the best of both worlds, so to speak, while also putting in a new attraction that, you know, as much as I'm sad to see the riverboat go and Tom Sawyer's Island, you have something that's a little bit more thrilling that's going to appeal to younger kids. But anyway, back to Mason's video. He realized that the way that the off-roading attraction is going to go, and it's going through tunnels and waterways, it looks very much like an old attraction called Nature's Wonderland. And I'm wondering if that was the solve for keeping the water, but also I'm wondering what's still even there that maybe was like covered over. Or if they had original concept art from Nature's Wonderland and just carried that through. And that's what they're using as the blueprint for this attraction. So I'm actually very interested to learn more about that and see what concepts are being recycled from that old attraction.
As you said, the riverboat, the Rivers of America, and Tom Sawyer Island will be reaching the end of their run at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom in Orlando. Its final day of operation will be July 6th, 2025, so a little over a month from now, with the official closing date being on July 7th. So closing on July 7th, construction walls will soon go up after. So if you have not yet been to Tom Sawyer Island and you have a trip booked, or if you are a Disney park local, now would be the time to see it, because you've got a little more than a month and then it will be gone.
I appreciate that they're letting it go through 4th of July, because that riverboat, and especially Tom Sawyer, like those are things that are so rooted in Americana, the Americana that Walt loves so much. I think that would have been in really poor taste to cut that out before 4th of July.
Thank you so much for joining us this and every week on Monoreel Radio. Monoreel Radio will always be free, but there are many ways that you can support the show. Please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Join the conversation on social media at Monoreel Radio on all major platforms. Share your favorite episodes with family and friends who may enjoy them. And of course, book your next trip with Jackie. Links to everything can be found at monoreelradio.com. We all get one story. Make yours a magical one.
On behalf of Monoreel Radio, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of.